Hello, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chats for January 27th, 2022. This is one of our core topics. The core topic is a kind of key topic that we repeat every year, and it's also a topic that you'll see in an introduction to independent consulting workshop. This is actually probably the why people want to become an independent consultant are the two kind of key topics that you'll hear a lot and I present on frequently. If I've presented at an affiliate that you belong to, like in Atlanta or Colorado or Oregon or something, Baltimore, this is the presentation that I've given. It continues to grow and adapt, and I get better graphics and things like that. So generally about IC Topic Chats, just so you know, if you're following us on YouTube, we do meet in person live every Thursday at noon Eastern or 11 my time, because I'm a Central Time Zone person. We always talk about independent consulting, specifically around, most of us are program evaluators, so not everybody. Some people are grant writers. I think at some point we'll probably branch out even broader than that, but we do kind of have a home in the American Evaluation Association, and most of us identify and associate with the ICTIG, which is an acronym for the Independent Consulting Topical Interest Group. A lot of us are just big fans of that group because there's a great interaction there. It's a great association. Anyway, so back to the topic at hand. We're talking about the core topic niche. And so this is just my little graphic. Today, I mean, really, we're going to break it down. Here's a couple books that I use to reference it. Good to Great is kind of the primary one that I always talk about. Jim Collins wrote this book. That's the most, I guess my understanding is that's the most, what's the term? It's sold more books in the business section than anything else, even on top of the How to Win Friends and Influence People book. But so it's just a really, it's been around for 20 plus years. I think it was published in like 2000, but it continues to be a book people talk about. And Jim Collins has probably made quite a bit of fortune off of selling those books. The other ones are probably less well known to you. The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur is just kind of an entrepreneurship book. You can tell there's a little bit of potty humor, literally and figuratively, actually mostly figuratively throughout. It's a good little book that I suggest. It's kind of funny. It's an easy read. And How to Ikigai is a wholly different book about kind of the Japanese philosophy that I'll get into in the middle of the presentation. So when you're thinking about your niche, so generally, what's a niche? A niche is who do you want to serve, right? And how do you identify it? It's really the process of saying no. How frequently do you want to say no to people so that you can say yes more frequently? So you start by saying, who do I want to serve? Who are these types of people? What do I know about them? What types of services do I offer? So for most of us, that's evaluation services or some sort of data support, program development, grant writing types of services. And how do I want to spend my time? So these are the big, broad questions that you're asking yourself. But let's put that in the background, and we'll get back to some of that in a little bit. Jim Collins talks about this hedgehog concept. Now he goes into this book, and his background is he did this big research project where he looked at very successful companies, very large companies. And he looked at some of the characteristics they had, and he looked at leadership traits and how they put people in places to be successful and how they identify technology and things like that. I think the big takeaway for most of us, I think the whole book's good, but the one big takeaway is his idea on the hedgehog concept. Now, let me pull up my notes. The hedgehog concept comes from this essay by the English philosopher Isaiah Berlin in 1953. He wrote this idea about hedgehogs versus foxes, which is, if you go further back, it's kind of this idea from the Greek poet Archilochus. I think I'm saying that correct. Archilochus says the fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. Isaiah Berlin's essay really talked about philosophers, and some philosophers are influenced by one field of thought, and that influences everything they do, and other philosophers are influenced by a lot of fields of thought, and then they're more multidisciplinary. Now, when we get into business, The way Jim Collins talks about it is he thinks about the hedgehog as an individual who very carefully identifies their niche, and they focus very carefully on what they're doing, and they move in a very straightforward manner towards it in the way that a hedgehog would move. Now, unlike what my son tells me, Sonic the Hedgehog is very fast and speedy, but real hedgehogs are more like porcupines, as you can see here. And they move in a very determined fashion where they're going. If something comes to attack them, they stop and they ball up and they protect themselves with their spines. The fox, however, darts from idea to idea and is moving around without as much purpose. And so when we get into this, the hedgehog is the ideal business person who focuses in on their niche because they're able to stay focused on what they're doing. So to consider this a little bit further, he created this idea of a Venn diagram. And the way to think about what you do and how to focus on these things is to identify these different ideas. You first start with what you love. And this is what you should be doing. I mean, this is, I know we're talking, this is like business 101 kind of stuff, but this is everything. Like, what do you enjoy doing? And you should probably start there. If you don't enjoy doing what you're doing, this isn't going to be sustainable. So for me, I enjoy within work and within my consulting practice, I enjoy working with educational organizations. I really did have kind of a love affair with universities when I was an undergraduate student, and I went on to do that in graduate, and I have a PhD. It's the weirdest thing. I have a PhD in education, not just education, but in universities. In fact, I research at a university. So I have a degree in universities, and I research. That's what I love, and I love working with universities. Second, you need to think about what are you good at? What are those things that make you special, that you've developed along the way? Now, usually there's an overlap, and there should be an overlap between what you love and what you're good at. There are things you may love to do that you're no good at, particularly with regards to business. You need to think about whether that's something you want to do and try and make money at, because if you're not good at it, it's going to be difficult to to make that sustainable. And finally, what can you get paid for? So where's the money, right? Who's got opportunities for you? So within my world, I look at STEM education. I'm good at data analysis, and I can get paid for STEM education kind of work. But anyway, I want to go to the next slide because this is his big idea. He says you need to be focusing in on that overlap of those three circles. What do you love? What are you good at? And what can you get paid for? It's unsustainable to be in some of these other circles because, let's say, if you love being an art student, right? Maybe there's not a lot of money there, and maybe you're not necessarily good at it. Well, that's not going to be sustainable. I actually love history, and I love history education. And I would love to do evaluation for history education. I would be good at it, and I love it, but there's not a lot of money out there for it. Now, what we actually find is a lot of people who are very good at things, and they get paid very well for things, but they don't love it. In career fields, a classic example is a corporate attorney. There's a lot of corporate attorneys that really hate their work, according to some research I've heard about. Anyhow, so these are some different ideas. But when you're thinking about your niche within an independent consulting practice, what is it that you love doing, that you're good at, and where there are people prepared to pay you to do that, right? Where's the money? Now, this is the classic example that Jim Collins created as a hedgehog concept. I want to add a new idea in here. I call, I don't call it, it's what it is. It's Ikigai. Now, Ikigai is this kind of strange Japanese word, and it's something I bet some people have heard about, but I hadn't heard about it until about a year ago. And I feel like it was like an aha moment for me. And it's almost as if Jim Collins had read about Ikigai when he put together his ideas around the hedgehog concept, which I don't think happened. Ikigai is much older and predates all of his work. But it, in fact, talks about those three things of what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for. But it adds in a fourth circle, and it's what the world needs. And as you think about it, what the world needs actually helps you think about your niche in a little bit more definition. So just to go back to the definition of Ikigai, the Oxford English Dictionary defines it as a motivating force, something or someone that gives a person a sense of purpose or a reason for living. It's the Japanese combination of two words of iki, which means life, and kai, which is meaning. It is literally your life meaning. So to add in the fourth circle and make this Ikigai, it is not just a Venn diagram anymore. It actually becomes the visual representation of your life's meaning. And it's a great way to think about what you're trying to do within your work. Because if you're like me, this independent consulting practice isn't just a side gig that I'm doing anymore. It's something that I love and it's what I want to do. I dedicate my time to it, dedicate my time to my staff and the development of this. And, do I work 40 hours a week? Not really. I work a lot more. And it's because I'm having such a good time doing it. Because I feel like I found my Ikigai, my focus. So getting back to this whole idea, we focus on the overlap of the four circles. What I love is supporting educational organizations that are attempting to make the world a better place. What are you good at? I'm good at data analysis. You can give me a big data set. I can figure out what it means. I can communicate that in an effective way. There are people who are willing to pay me, at least so far, in STEM evaluation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI STEM scholarships like STEMs and NOISs, and for educator shortage. And then finally, I bring all three of these together and I think about that Ikigai element, or the fourth circle of, I've created a professional evaluation firm that supports funded educational initiatives for professional program evaluation. Is that, I just kind of wrote that down, but that's almost like effectively like my byline to my business. But that's what the world needs from my perspective and the overlapping of these four circles. And that's how I've identified my niche. And to the degree I can continue to do things and see this overlap of these circles, I'm going to be successful because that helps me define what I should say yes to. And just as importantly, and probably actually more importantly, it's what I should say no to. So getting back to Jim Collins, he talks about the flywheel. Now, a flywheel is some sort of device on your car that makes the car go and the engine runs and it spins and the wheels turn. And frankly, I don't understand it very well. But I do understand Ferris wheels. So let's think about the flywheel as a Ferris wheel now. I spent a lot of time in Chicago and I would go out to Navy Pier. And so I always think about Navy Pier and that Ferris wheel at the end of Navy Pier, which is a place where my wife and I spent time when we were first dating. We'd always go on the Ferris wheel. And so my thought is if you can spin that Ferris wheel and use that as a representation for the success of your business. Now, if you focus your attention like a hedgehog, right? You're focusing your attention in one location, you can push on it and you can push on that Ferris wheel and it will start to spin. Now, if you push left or right, it's not going to spin. You're not pushing in the right direction, you're pushing in the wrong direction. That's effectively pushing left or right is getting outside of your niche. You're outside of your four overlapping circles or your Ikigai. But if you're focusing in on the center of those four circles, you're spinning that Ferris wheel. And the more you continue to focus on it, the more you continue to come back to those four circles, the faster your flywheel or your Ferris wheel spins. And you keep coming back, and you keep coming back, and it spins to the point, well, we all start to get a headache looking at the slide. So that's the big idea on niches. It's thinking about what are the things that you're good at, you enjoy, where there's money, and that you're doing something that the world needs. And the degree to which you can focus on that makes sense. Now, if you're like me, and I'm sure you are, when you first started out, you said, well, that's what I want to do, but how do I figure that out? What do I know what the world needs? What do I know what people are getting ready to give me money to do? So we find ourselves kind of looking at a blurry world, and little by little, we get a little more clear. Actually, this should be more clear on the right, but it's still a little bit blurry. My point is through time, we figure these things out. And I think our niches change over time, and it's important for us to understand that as well. And it is a bit of a game of It's an art of playing jazz while surfing. There's no science to this exactly. I mean, I gave you as much science as I know, and really it's just conceptual ideas of trying to figure out when you say yes and when you say no based upon, the things that you're good at, you enjoy, where there's money and where you feel like you're doing something that's right for the world. So as Mike Michalowicz says, the big, not so secret to finding your niche is to be really, really good at very, very little. And hypothetically, we're all trying to do that because the more you can narrow your niche into a world that people really need your services and you can continue to focus it, then you can be the best in the world at something that is extremely important, that very few people can do, and you can demand appropriate compensation for that. Another thought here, this is from one of our colleagues, Nikki Bowman. She wrote this, and we put this in one of the chapters for the published journal for New Directions of Evaluation. I'll let you read this. I don't know if Nikki Bowman was thinking about niche when she said this specifically, but this is what she was talking about. I don't know if that was in response to that. I think this was in Amy Gurley's chapter. Finally, another quote for you is that Warren Buffett, and this is exactly what we're talking about today. Really successful people say no to almost everything. And those are the people that really understand what they're good at, their niche, in an extremely detailed way. I'm going to show you the next slide, but I'm going to skip by it because I feel like it's going to take us off topic. But I do want to ask some questions after our session here. So I'm going to stop the recording in just a second. But these are the questions I want to get into for our discussion period. But do you consider yourself a hedgehog or a fox? I've had people turn back to me and they say your idea on such a narrow focus as a hedgehog is too detailed. I'm a fox, and I believe a fox is the way to go. So people will argue with that idea. Some people, I mean, I guess to what degree can we ever be a quote unquote pure hedgehog? I'm going to ask the question, to what degree has your niche changed over time? Do you have any examples of going outside your niche that have either worked or not worked, and why? And maybe if I could get some people to talk to me about saying no, and I can tell you stories after stories of saying no. In fact, I think I recently had to do that. So with that, I want to share with you our upcoming sessions. Next week, we've got a 90-minute session on our subcontractor fair. If you've signed up for that, you'll get an email from me tomorrow giving you access to a shared Google folder. That will give you the ability to drop your CV or any kind of contact information in some folders for people you may want to connect with who may be looking for contractors, subcontractors to work with them. But you can see 2 weeks from now, Susan and Ann, and you're going to have to tell me, Susan and Ann, is Cheryl joining you guys, but partnership, they're going to be talking about partnerships. We'll be talking about difficult clients. 2 weeks from then, I think I won't be available, but if you're interested in being on that panel, reach out, and then you can see the rest of the things. But I am kind of excited to talk about the finances of the from the independent consulting survey from about 6 years ago on February 24th. I haven't done that presentation since we did it in person. Oh, I should say, look at that. We've got Julie Zhang coming on March 10th. She's going to be talking about developing evaluation budgets. I'm really excited about that. I actually have no idea what she's going to talk about because I know she has this tool that I've never seen before. Anyhow, with that, I'm going to pause, and I'd love to hear from all of you.